The UN again warning that the Gaza Strip could reach total famine in just 6 weeks now. And that's why organizations like UNICEF are still on the ground attempting to bring life-saving support to hundreds of thousands of children and women who are facing malnourishment and trauma at this very moment. We first caught up with Tess Ingram, spokesperson for UNICEF, when she was on the ground in Rafah last month. She joins me again, this time stateside. So, Tess, the UN has been warning of famine for months now. You were there in Rafah. Let's talk about the options that these Palestinians have. Do they really have options? And how much longer is this actually sustainable?
Well, look, we know that people have options, but the question is, are those options feasible and are they safe? And the answer to that is no. We know that people are being encouraged to leave Rafah, but there really is no good place for them to go. Areas to the north have been decimated by the fighting. I was there and was shocked by the level of destruction in places like Khan Yunis, where buildings are rubble, basically, and there's unexploded ordnance that people need to be aware of. And so it's a very dangerous place. Other than that, people are being encouraged to move closer to the coast, to a so-called humanitarian zone called Al Mawasi. And there we know that there's no basic services. It's essentially a sand dune. So people's options are really limited. And as a result, people are terrified.
So 1 million plus civilians are currently seeking refuge in Rafah. We've talked about this number over and over again, and they've been told to evacuate to places like Al Mawasi, also Khan Yunis, that's further north, where Israel says humanitarian aid, water, food, medical equipment, and shelter will all be provided. Is that true? And what are those conditions like?
So we're not seeing evidence yet of mass support and services for the people who are being displaced. We haven't consistently for the last 7 months. Not only has that not been provided, but also our ability to deliver that has been restricted at every turn. So, this continues to be a challenge, and the children in Gaza are the ones suffering as a result. The conditions that they're living in makeshift shelters are just abysmal. You really have to see it to believe it. People are crammed into very small tents. The lines for toilets is incredibly long, and so people have to resort to other options that are unsanitary, and it creates disease that exacerbates malnutrition. So these are really deadly cycles that we're talking about for children.
So clearly we need to fact check what Israel is telling us. It's a different story from what you've seen there on the ground, and you're nonpartisan. So let's talk about the aid for Gaza that was just loaded on this ship in Cyprus today for what's expected to be the first aid delivered to that newly built port along the Gaza Strip. What will be on that ship, do you think, Tess? And where will all those items go first, and how will it be distributed?
Yeah, look, we can only hope that that ship contains life-saving supplies that not only reach the shore, but then are able to be safely distributed to the vulnerable people across the Gaza Strip. And it's taken on an extra level of importance because with what is happening in Rafah, the two key land crossings, Rafah and Kerem Shalom, have been closed since Sunday. And so we haven't been able to get in any aid since Sunday, including fuel, which is a tragedy because fuel is the thing that keeps everything moving in Gaza, including the hospitals and the water plants and our delivery trucks. So we really need to get more aid into the Gaza Strip, but then make sure that we can distribute it as well in these really dangerous and difficult conditions.
I definitely, before we go, want to just talk about, despite the devastation, I know what you and people like James Elder as well with UNICEF do for these Palestinian children, and they're still trying to find ways to be positive, to smile, to just be kids. And you have been there when they've been flying kites, they've been in the open fields, creating makeshift swings. I love it when you're able to document these moments, even arts and crafts, and making things to distract themselves from what's going on. It's like they are still finding the humanity through all this heartbreak. And it's just, this looks like a whole different situation than what is really going on. It's beautiful to see that they can still be kids.
Yeah, and it's so important that we remember that, I think, because, we often talk about the hostilities and the negative impacts of that, but at the end of the day, we're talking about children, 600,000 of them seeking shelter in Rafah, and they just want to be kids. Then they don't understand really what's happening around them. They want to play and laugh with their friends. They miss going to school for the last 7 months. So it's an important fact for us to remember that Rafah really is a city of children, and images like this, I think, are important for us to see to really drive that home and keep in mind that at the end of the day, these kids just want peace.
And they deserve it. And they deserve these moments, and they also deserve to be back in school. Tess Ingram, appreciate everything that you do.